Hey guys, Matt here. Obviously, this is a crazy time. I did want to check in and share a few thoughts about the murder of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, this is evil. I didn't, I really held off saying anything about this, tweeting anything about this, posting anything about this last night. And even now, I'm recording this Thursday morning, and we're still coming to terms, like personally and corporately, about what all this all means. But I do have some reactions and insights and thoughts. I mean, starting with the obvious that this is horrific and evil and completely unwarranted. Also, another thing that just comes to mind is the fact that assassinations are no longer limited to politicians. Opinion leaders, commentators are now, I don't want to say fair game, but look, I mean, as someone who goes out sometimes and gives speeches and talks, I mean, obviously, I'm nowhere near as famous or controversial as Charlie Kirk, but this is a development that is not great. Obviously, it's not the first time something like this has happened. I mean, there was a fatwa put on Salman Rushdie for writing a book, and then decades later he was attacked. So it's maybe not the first time we've seen something like this, but it is alarming, and obviously it's something that we all saw on video very graphically, partly because of, I think, the proliferation of iPhones. So it's probably something we're processing differently. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm old enough to remember the days when college campuses would have pies thrown in their face, like Ann Coulter or Pat Buchanan. We've come a long way since then. And this raises a bunch of questions we'll get into here. One is security. It was obviously lax. I'm told there were no magnetometers, that there were tickets, but nobody checked the tickets. This was an open air event. So I think much like what happened in Butler, it's just much harder to secure an open air event. There are now alleged videos, I don't know if they're accurate, but alleging someone walking on nearby rooftops. I don't know if that's real, but there's a whole bunch. And by the way, forgive me if you're very online, you're probably aware of all this. But for those who are not, God bless you if you're not. Just listen to this and I'll key you in on some of the things you maybe need to know about without getting totally sucked down the rabbit hole. But there's a lot of conspiracy circulating that I'm seeing. One of them is people are actually blaming Israel for this, saying that it was an op, like a professional hit job, and that Israel's behind it. My guess is this is like just an anti-Semitic trope. Charlie Kirk was very pro-Israel, but there are prominent conspiracy type voices who are blaming Israel and saying that Kirk was starting to turn against them. There are also videos showing someone who appears to be standing behind Charlie at a certain point, giving hand signals, sort of the kinds of hand signals that a baseball manager might give if he's telling someone to lay down a bunt. Looks a little suspicious. There are videos focused on Charlie's shirt and apparently some changes in the way that it appears, rips in certain areas in 1 second, and then they disappear before he's shot. There are people alleging that his wedding ring changes fingers during the shooting. I don't know what the allegations there, but it's sort of like the Zapruder film. People are going through this. I'm sure some people are doctoring footage. Other people, it's just sort of like, I mean, here we are recording this on 9/11. But yeah, people looking at footage and saying, why is it that this didn't happen or that happened? This is a big event, and people will certainly do that nowadays, especially. I assume most of this is speculation, but it's possible some of it will turn out to be relevant. One thing that is real, sadly, are people who are going on video gloating about Charlie's death. Some of them are even wicked enough and stupid enough to post videos celebrating it. I think we should condemn that. But I also think we need to condemn some prominent voices on the right who are blaming Democrats broadly or even suggesting retaliation. And I've seen a couple of examples. I think the most prominent are probably Jesse Waters.
Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy. Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. You got trans shooters. You got riots in LA. They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves. Now, Charlie would want us to put as much pressure on these people as possible. Dana nailed it. This is unacceptable and has to stop. And it has to stop now. And everybody's accountable. And we're watching what they're saying on television and who's saying what. The politicians, and the media, and all these rats out there. This can never happen again. It ends now. Greg's right again. This is a turning point, and we know which direction we're going.
And Representative Nancy Mace.
I'm going to say this. Democrats own what happened today. I am devastated. My kids have called panicking. All the kids of every conservative in the country called panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
Then, by that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the 2 Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking.
We don't know what condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through his neck, and you want to talk about Republicans right now? No.
No, I'm asking.
No, not at all.
You said the Democrats have
this is on. Democrats own this.
But isn't there a problem with political violence across the spectrum?
Yeah, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%.
Mace wants to blame Democrats, yet when asked about the killings of Minnesota Democratic politicians, she refused to acknowledge that we have a larger problem having to do with political violence and rhetoric. I don't know if you've seen this, but Ezra Klein did a pretty good job of cataloging some of the recent episodes of political violence. And in his telling, and I think there are more, but he talks about the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the storming of the Capitol, the pipe bombs left at the RNC and the DNC, the break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the assault on Paul Pelosi, multiple assassination attempts against Donald Trump, the killing of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shooting of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Also, Luigi Mangioni's assassination of Brian Thompson. So this isn't an isolated event, and it's clearly a bipartisan problem. Again, political violence is evil and abhorrent. I think Charlie Kirk, we had our differences, but he was a child of God. He was a husband. He was a father. And he was someone who was, talking. Some of the things he said were provocative, but he was talking. And last time I checked, that's allowed. But there were some provocative things. And I have to say, I've been a little bit surprised at how some people in the liberal or mainstream media have kind of turned him into a martyr. Obviously, nothing he said deserved violence. But I do want to show some clips that are making the rounds on social media now to kind of help explain why there is, again, I think very misguided, but there is glee from some, okay? So in one clip, he attacks DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and pretty provocative and obviously controversial way.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well,
that's the
you
game
wouldn't have
theory
done
I was
that.
talking
You
about
wouldn't have. You
No,
wouldn't
and
have done
that's
that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't
that's
have done
not
that
who I
before.
am. That's
No.
not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has
But
created.
I'm
In another clip, he suggests the man who attacked Paul Pelosi should be bailed out. He wasn't defending the attacker, but he was making a broader point about cash bail. But you could see how that might upset his opponents and obviously come across as insensitive. Because remember, Paul Pelosi was brutally attacked by a guy with a hammer. So, not great. Charlie also famously rejected the word empathy and suggested that gun violence was something Americans would just have to tolerate.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why.
So for people who think maybe we ought to do something about gun violence, like, say, gun control, that is pretty outrageous thing to hear. What's crazy, of course, is he was talking about mass shootings the moment he was shot. I wonder if that was a coincidence. Maybe we'll find out. I mean, as I'm recording this, the person is at large who did this, the murderer, the assassin. And there are people saying, well, maybe if the FBI hadn't hired some podcasters, maybe if they weren't so focused on other things, they could be up to speed on domestic violence or on domestic terrorism. I mean, I don't know if that's fair. I'm just telling you what's being said right now as I continue to process this. Anyway, obviously tragic. His group was called Turning Point USA, is called Turning Point USA. And that is obviously today somewhat of an apt or ironic name. And it very well may be a turning point. It could be a turning point for the good or for the bad. I obviously hope it's for the former. I do fear it's for the latter. Anyway, again, please, I ask you to show grace in the comments here. If anyone watches this, I'm sure there's a lot of people commenting. I don't have any special knowledge. I do think this is maybe a service if you haven't been following this closely. You could just watch this video. But anyway, God bless you. Please pray for the family of Charlie Kirk and for America. I think we could all use those prayers right now.